Hello, my name is Richmond and I welcome you to another episode on the Scratch Junior sessions. In our previous session, we spoke about the motion palette, all the blocks under the motion palette and how they affect the characters once they are being executed. In this particular tutorial, we'll be moving on to the looks palette and view the blocks there as well, their functions and how they affect the characters. But before we get into that tutorial, as usual, if you're a new viewer, kindly subscribe to this channel and also turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to be notified when I release any new video. Also, if you learn any new thing at the end of this session, you can leave a like to encourage me to do more videos of this kind. With that said, let's get into today's tutorial. Let me click on this home as usual to open our projects page, and we've been working on this project one for a while, so that is what we are going to use, and I'm going to just double click on it to open it. Alright, so this was where we ended the last time when talking about the motions palette. I'm going to delete this whole block and maintain the event, because as we all know, we need an event to execute or to trigger any block to be executed. Alright, so the next palette we are moving on is this purple palette, which is known as the looks palette. And in the looks palette, we have blocks like the say block, we have the grow block, and we have the shrink, we have the reset size, we have the hide, and we have the show block. Now, we've been using the dog for a while now, so I'm going to delete the dog so that we use the rabbit in this particular palette, or we use the rabbit to explain this particular palette. Alright, so let me pick my event as usual. So once I have the rabbit selected, you can see here that the shadow of the rabbit is here, indicating that any code I put in here would go for the rabbit alone. Alright, so let's move on. The first block we have under the looks palette is a say block. I'm going to drag and drop it here, connect it so that it can be triggered once the event when the green flag is clicked is achieved. Okay, so what this block here does is, the say block does is, it enables the character to say anything you type in here. Alright, so you can see it has a space in here provided for what you want the character to say. By default is hi, that is there, but you can change it to anything at all. We are going to run the default one, which is the hi, and see how it displays. Once we are able to understand that, then we move on changing the hi to something else. So depending on what you want the character to say, you just input it here and the character says it. Alright, so I'm going to click the green flag to execute this and we see how it works. As you can see, the character just said it. Let me run it one more time and you see it right there. So the character says hi, and once it's done, it waits for some time and the hi goes back. So let's say the character wants to say hello and welcome to the rich tech Alright, so welcome to Rich Tech. Alright, that's fine. Now, if I click on this green flag here, it's supposed to trigger that particular block, which is a say block, and the say block has this sentence inside or statement inside, which is supposed to enable the character to display that or say it. Okay, so I'm going to click on the green flag right away for us to see that. So as you can see, hello, welcome to Rich Tech displayed on top here, and that is what the say block is for. I hope this is quite simple and understandable. We are going to move on to the next block, which is the grow block. So as its name says, grow, which means it's going to enable the character increase in size. All right, so depending on the size that the character is having by default, is going to increase it in size depending on the value that you put here. Once again, depending on the value you put in here, it's going to affect the block whether to increase its function or decrease its function. So if I put in by default, we have 2 here, which is going to let the character increase by some size, all right? And if you increase this 2, it's going to increase the size accordingly, all right? So let me run this 2 by default so that we see the effect. I'm going to run it. So as you can see, the character has increased in size, and if I reset it, the character goes back to its original size. Let's run it one last time to see the effect well. All right, so you can see the character has increased in size, and if you reset it, it goes back to the size. Supposing we wanted it to increase more, let's say I make it 8. I want it to be very big, and that I increase the value here. So if I click on the green flag, you can see the character has increased in size, and this is way bigger than the previous value because 8 is bigger than the previous value we had, which was 2. All right, I'm going to reset it and we move back to the next block. So the next block is the shrink block, right? So the shrink block is just the opposite of the grow block, right? So once you have the character and you want to reduce its size, you use the shrink block. So if I run this, by default, the value is 2. It's going to shrink it by that particular value, and the character will reduce in size, as you can see. Let me reset it and do it again. Right, so as you can see, the character reduced in size. Supposing we wanted it to reduce in size with a larger value, that means we want it to be very small, and as such we've increased the value over here. Depending on how small you want it to become, you increase the value, and if you run it, it's going to have an effect on it. And as you can see, the character here has increased in size so well. All right, so I'm going to reset it back to its original state and run it again. All right, so the character has become very small, and I hope this is very simple and understandable. The next block we have is the reset size block. So as you can see, the shrink block has already had an effect on the character, right? It has reduced the character's default size, and the character has shrunk to this particular size you can see here. Now, if you use the reset size block, whichever size the character has either reduced to or grow to is going to reset it back to its original or default size. So that is the function. So if I run this right now, the character should come back to its original size. All right, so as you can see, the character just came back to its original size. All right, the next block we have is the hide block, right? So cases where you are working on a project and you want the character to vanish, or in other words, hide for some time, you can use this particular hide block and the character will just disappear. All right, so if I run this, you can see the character has just disappeared from the stage. All right, now if I want it to reappear, then I'll use its opposite block, which is the show block, right? The show is just the opposite of the hide, and if the character is hidden, it's going to show it for you to see. All right, so if I run this right now, the character is going to show back for us to see. I hope these blocks are very simple and easy to understand. And this brings us to the end of today's session. It was very short, and hopefully we are going to meet in our next session talking about the sound block, where we talk about these 2 blocks we have here, or these 2 items we have here. All right, with that said, we are going to end today's session, and until we meet again, bye bye.